Ashley couldn't fathom what she was seeing. The animal was so persistent, like a curious, oversized cat. It stalked her and Carter. Her heart was racing as she took another step back, and another step back. All the while, the bear continuing its pursuit. But what did it want? Why has it been following the couple for the past 5 minutes? The ground was rough and patchy beneath her. She almost lost her footing several times. She looked down and could see her white sundress, weathered and torn, along with her pale white legs cut and bruised from stumbling through brush, fleeing this pursuing creature. What began as a nice little date in the Porcupine Mountains ended up being something far worse. What's up, guys? Iceman here. So this story is about a very horrific bear pursuit, where the bear was pursuing this young couple and something horrendous happens. But first off, I'd like to thank you guys and gals for all your support on this channel. And if you will, like this video, subscribe to the page, and paw that bell so you're notified next time I post a video. And if you want to support me further, you can become a channel member or a patron. Links in the description below. So let's continue with this chilling tale. Carter, what does it want? Why won't it stop following us? She screeched to her boyfriend of only 1 month. The young man had a look of terror on his face, and he continued to walk backwards next to her. They were off trail, but the openness was eerie with opportunity. Trees and tall grass, some hills. The curious creature seemed almost shy as it followed them, occasionally hiding behind a tree, only to charge back out with its ears back and head low and continue. It always kept about 10 feet between itself and the struggling, scared humans. "Hey, bear! Whoa, bear!" Carter yelled to it, but the bear seemed to completely ignore his efforts to scare it off. Its strength seemed unmatchable. As it moved through the brush and hillside with such ease after the couple, it would stop and gaze for a moment, jump up onto a tree, and climb a few feet up the trunk, only to pounce back down and continue its pursuit. The bear did this several times over a few minutes, as if it were trying to showcase to the human couple its strength, showing them how easily it could heave itself up a tree, emboldening itself in the sight of the humans. It would hop down from the tree and walk faster toward them, with its back hunched up for a moment like a cat, as if it were trying to stand taller as it walked on all fours after them. Perhaps another method in showcasing its dominance and capabilities to the two. A strong bear, a capable bear, and a dangerous bear. The Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park, located in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, encompasses 60,000 acres of old-growth forest and Lake Superior shoreline. Miles of trails with beautiful views make the park a popular tourist destination during the summer months, and especially the fall, when changing colors on the deciduous trees turn the landscape into a work of art. The famous Lake of the Clouds is perhaps the most photographed site in the Upper Peninsula, with leaf peepers coming from all over the country at peak color season to take in the sight. The Porcupine Mountains have a small but active population of black bears. Visitors to the park are warned that an increase in bear activity has occurred over the recent years. There is signage to remind campers to correctly store food. However, in 2021, there were multiple overnight raids in the campground, sometimes with more than a dozen coolers being broken into in one night. Despite the natural beauty in and around his hometown of Ontonagon, Carter grew up playing video games and shying away from sports. He stood only 5'9" and weighed about 150 pounds. He wore thick-framed glasses and played Dungeons and Dragons, enjoyed going to local pubs with his friends, and had only recently met Ashley, who most likely saw a friend in him more than anything else. She came from a few abusive relationships and ended up seeking a more soft and docile man like Carter. Ashley grew up thinking black bears were cute and cuddly, and the brown ones were the ones of trouble. This was the first time she'd seen one out in the wild, aside from a few times with her family at a local ice cream shop. The black bears there were fat and pudgy and lazy too, and seemed to completely ignore the humans, who would watch them in awe and wonder while licking their ice cream cones from a distance. Those bears seemed tame. They hung out by the trash cans, digging through them throughout the evenings. The trash was all they seemed to mind. The owner of the ice cream shop never did anything about the presence of the bears. Perhaps he saw it as an opportunity to save money on garbage disposal, or perhaps he saw them as a tourist attraction. But nonetheless, the bears never seemed dangerous at all, and those were the only bears that Ashley had ever seen. But this one was something else. Its muscle could be seen moving through its skin as it lurched closer and closer to the couple. The bear grew more and more brazen the longer the terrified couple tolerated it, and they knew they had to make a move. Without thinking, Ashley pulled out her cell phone and threw it as hard as she could at the animal. She missed, and the cell phone hissed by its face and into the thick grass behind it. The bear stopped and looked back, only to fix its gaze back onto the young, vulnerable female. The two were about a mile from the trailhead and parking lot where their car was located. Both of them had a feeling within that something horrid was about to happen, and that they might never see tomorrow. Ashley fell into a trance for but a moment, recalling a recent grizzly bear attack that she overheard hunting friends at school talking about. A young man was elk hunting with his bow not far from Yellowstone last fall, and he startled a massive male grizzly bear while walking through a dense shrub near Duck Lake. The bear charged and tackled the man, giving him no time to react, and viciously mauled him, digging gaping wounds into his flesh. The man's body was found the next day with his head ripped off and his arms shredded. Ashley could now see the strength these animals are capable of. This black bear following her was much smaller than a full-grown grizzly Bruin, but compared to her dog back at home, it was evident it could kill two full-grown adults with ease. They were walking quickly backward and facing the bear, and as she watched, the bear jumped forward and took a quick swat at Ashley as she jumped back, its claws shredding a wound in her calf. After the attempt, it fell back and looked at both humans warily, as if it were testing them. Seeing this, Carter turned and ran, as he knew they weren't far from the car now. Ashley turned with him, but stumbled on some tree roots, falling flat on her side. It was at this point when the bear saw the opportunity and lunged at the vulnerable female, now alone and on the ground. She tried to kick it in the face, but was only wearing a pair of wedge sandals, and the bear simply swatted her legs out of the way and crawled on top of her, mounting her like a wrestler. Carter could hear the screams and cries as he continued to run toward the entrance of the park. Carter's heart grew heavy as the screams grew increasingly faint. He could already feel the social humiliation he'd receive if he abandoned a young, helpless woman to the likes of a dangerous predator. So he stopped, searched for a large, strong stick, and headed back to the vicious scene. He returned to the terrible sight of the bear atop Ashley's seemingly lifeless body, with the bear rubbing its underside all over her, perhaps making its cache, scraping its tail on her back and butt. Carter stood frozen in fear and horror. What the hell was the bear doing? And he was sure that Ashley was dead. But then he noticed her tuck her arm under her belly, keeping it from the bear's reach. The young man charged the bear with a stick and struck it on the forehead. The bear groaned and lurched off of Ashley and began pursuing the man. Carter stood his ground, readying the stick like a baseball bat. The bear, perceiving the man's dominance, stood on its hind legs to showcase its own. It stood taller than Carter, perhaps around 6 foot, and began edging toward him. Carter lifted the stick above his head and swung downward onto the bear's skull, and it startled the creature, sending it back down to all fours. It began walking back toward Ashley, as though it only wanted her, but Carter charged it again, yelling with the stick in hand. The bear dashed away from him, leaving Ashley's body, and Carter hovered over it as a means of protection. The bear stood on all fours, breathing heavily, gazing at the two humans with drool oozing from its mouth. Carter yelled at it again, but this time it didn't move. It just stood there, watching them. "Ashley!" he exclaimed. She moaned and softly answered him. Miraculously, he was able to help her to her feet. She had one arm severely injured, and her forehead was dripping blood from a wound on her skull. The two stood there, facing the bear. It seemed to take notice of the fact that the two humans had gained their footing once again, and were now more of a threat than what they were moments ago. The bear paused and evaluated, giving the pair time to back away, putting more distance between them and the bear. And this time, Carter was armed with a stick. They made it back to their vehicle, and the bear seemed to give up the pursuit. Ashley was rushed to the closest hospital and managed to survive the attack, with some lasting scars nonetheless. The couple claimed that in the future they would return to bear country, but next time they'll be carrying bear spray. Jeez, what do you guys and gals think about that bear story? It's crazy how the guy actually ended up running away, and of course that kept the female vulnerable, and that's when the attack happened. It seems like it's just the worst idea possible. But what's crazy is I've seen a few different videos on YouTube where it was a very similar situation. Two men were walking through a park trying to get back to their car, and there was a bear following them acting very similarly to the one in this attack. Of course, the sight of two men, I think, in general would be a bit more intimidating than the sight of a young man and a young female, according to a bear. But nonetheless, it was following those guys similarly to what this one was doing in this incident. Climbing up trees, showcasing its dominance, things like that. I think if I were in that situation, I would have been extremely tempted to just pick around at the ground and try to find a big heavy rock or something and just hurl it at the bear as hard as I could. But I'm not sure if that would be effective. Would that just piss the thing off and cause an attack? Or would that actually deter it? What do you think would have happened if Carter, say, hurled a rock at the bear? How do you think the bear would react to such a thing? I actually saw another bear on YouTube as well, where a guy was backing away from it, similarly once again to what happened in this incident. But the guy in this video actually had a small thing of pepper spray, and after several minutes of the black bear pursuing him, he ignited it at just the right time, and it seemed to deter the bear. So I would guess that in this situation, if Ashley or Carter had a good can of pepper spray, it probably would have worked. But of course, as many of you know who have been watching my videos for some time now, I would of course be carrying a small hand cannon as well. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below about this bear situation. How do you think it could have gone better? Could Ashley and Carter have made better decisions throughout the incident? And could the outcome have changed? Fortunately, she survived, and hopefully lessons were learned here. But nonetheless, I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say about this in the comment section below. And once again, I appreciate all of you for watching these videos, and I'll see you soon with more chilling tales from the Iceman.